Salama Abada, everyone, and OCO. So today's title is going to be How. That's it. How. And my reasoning for just entitling it that is because this is an episode I can recommend to someone that asks me, how did you make it? Being that you've been through what you've been through. How did you overcome this when it's challenging? I'm not going to say it's not possible. However, it's a challenge that's not common to make it through. And it's through the grace of Aliyah that I made it through everything, every obstacle. So this is my reference episode. And this is for the ones that never had the proper guidance and had to create their own guidance, had to self parent themselves or figure it out for themselves, stepping into new territory that is not familiar to you or those surrounding you. It's just everything is just spanking new overall in regards of what you face. So this episode is for everyone that can relate. And I want to start with where I'm at now and then take it back to where I started. Matter of fact, I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to start from the beginning and draw it to the point that where I'm at now. So during my beginning stage of my livelihood, I didn't have guidance. One thing I can appreciate though is not blaming anyone. I really didn't. I went through a phase. I wouldn't say it was a permanent phase or like a yearly episode where I just blamed everyone or someone. Because I didn't really start feeling like, I never felt like anyone was responsible for my misfortune in life. I didn't start to see anything until it was brought to my attention. I always blamed myself and felt like I wasn't good enough because I didn't know. And I kept it at that. I never said, oh, I didn't know because of you. Until I got grown, 20, 21, 22. This is around the time that other individuals is bringing it to my attention. Hey, this ain't normal. This normal to you? And it's not the fact of normalcy. It's the complacency. The when you are used to something, you just find yourself being complacent. And that's where I found myself being in the midst of, in regards of not having the proper guidance, not having the proper eloquence, and just fending for myself. It's like I was in Squid Game or Hunger Games in a sense, where I had to like figure this round out or fail and suffer the consequences of that. And I always was in a state of how do I get through this? How do I get through that? And obviously I never sat within that question, or else I wouldn't even be this far within my journey. I just always felt determined like there got to be an answer, there gotta be a way. I can't continuously be stuck in this space, in this area. Like there has to be an explanation. There has to be an exit plan. I never settle for I don't know. So I'm gonna stay stuck in the unknown, the unwillingness of learning. Like I never stayed stuck in that. There were points where I got frustrated and wanted to completely give up and felt hopeless. I never let those emotions lead the way. It was always logic though. So although I went through mostly every emotion you can imagine, I still had the ability, the willpower. All praise to Aliyah for that. because like I said, I'm entitling this episode how, because as I'm reflecting on it now, and it's just like, how did I get through that? It's the only explanation is it being a miracle itself, because I never would have imagined me making progress, because I never had a vision to make progress, to get out of the conditioning I was born and raised in, which is very challenging rather than difficult when you are brought up in a karmic bloodline, in a karmic situation. And you feel the weight of that when no one has paid the karmic debt. And now it's left for you to pay it, or the ones that come after you. And that's even if you even decide to keep the lineage going by giving birth, through giving birth. So that within itself is a handful. And that's a topic for another discussion when it comes to the carrying on the lineage through replenishing the earth. But in the other aspect, however, rather than but, in the other aspect of it all, I'm still willing to clear the debt by not carrying out certain traits that were never beneficial to begin with. Whether it be from either side of the spectrum of my bloodlines, I'm just not willing to carry out certain things because it was not beneficial. Obviously, I had no head start, I had no guidance, I had no role models. I had to learn from mistakes, learn from experience, and gain wisdom because of that. And that wisdom to this day has become my how. When you have to learn things the hard way, you find yourself, you witness both sides of the stick. Like on one side, you're the student. On the other side, you are the practitioner. Now you are practicing what you're preaching, because what you have preached, you have lived. You as in me. And at least that's how I perceive it and move off what I say. I'm very kinesthetic to the core. Like everything about me is kinesthetic. And that was tough within itself, because I found myself in situations where I was behind, because I didn't always know that about me. Because I lacked the guidance, I lacked the tools, I lacked the information that was supposed to have been passed down. And when necessities like that are not passed down, it is now your duty to gain, to be able to pass down something that's valuable, whether it be through information, transformation, just in any type. And in the beginning stage, it felt unfair, because it's like, why me? And I'm not going to say why not me. However, when you're willing to step up to the plate, you basically answered the question of why you, because you're willing out of the bunch. You're the willing one. And what comes with that is responsibility, accountability, and just the full ounce of the capability to even do what you are designed to do. And you designed to do what you do through what you are willing. And that goes deep. Like to the will of life, whether it be through spirituality, through Aliyah in my case, some people say through the will of God. You have to have a will in order to have a, you first have to have a way and a will in order to keep going. Because if you don't, how else would you move? And that's the realization I had to face in regards of how I'm going to figure it out in life, how I'm going to move forward, how I'm going to evolve from this. Is this burden permanent? If not, how can I get out of it? It's just a lot of hows that I've had to face within this realm of life. However, it was my willingness that got me through and got the one simple question of just how answered. I was patient enough to stick it out, get through it, rather than stand stuck in it. And I know I say that pretty frankly, but it's affirmations rather than but. It's affirmations and confirmation that I'm on the right track. My mindset is on growth just by even examining the mind. It's important that even when you feel like you're going through hell, don't put yourself through even more hell by having a negative mindset, because that's just going to dig you deeper into like a pit hole, and you don't want to be put in that situation, especially knowing you put yourself in that. So when the world seems to be upside down, you turn things around by first changing your mind, your perspective of what you see through your projection. And it may feel like you're rejecting your feelings in a sense if you're not tapped into meditation. Because one thing I do is, even when I feel neglected or rejected, I address those feelings and say, how can you overcome this feeling? How can you face this feeling first and foremost? Because you can't overcome something you're not willing to face. You either face everything and run or face everything and rise. It's your choice through it all, through each and every decision that you make. You're either your greatest letdown or your sunrise. You have to choose that. No one is willing to choose that position for you. No one. No one is willing to fill in those gaps, those missing spots that's within your life. And that's note to self. So, in the midst of me saying all this, it's also been brought to my attention that I'm turning my how even as I speak once again. I'm turning my how into demonstration. Like just filling in those gaps and fulfilling my own needs rather than expecting someone to do that for me. I became numb and used to the fact of not having no one and always having letdowns, to the point that I became accustomed to not depending on anyone. So that, on the bright side, it left me to tap in and depend on the Almighty, Aliyah, and from there, I learned how to depend on me as well. Because what I realized from my side of view, when when you ain't willing to put in no effort, don't expect no one else to do it. I can't speak for the Almighty. I can only speak how I feel. And with that being said, I feel like the Almighty is like, the Almighty will meet you halfway. But if you ain't even willing to meet yourself halfway, what's the point of expecting someone outside of yourself or outside of an entity, outside of existence, outside of the higher power, the higher source? You can't expect anyone or anything to do anything for you that you're not willing to do, is basically what I'm saying. That's some hard truths. That's something I had to learn later on in life. And I'm grateful that I've learned it before I'm 30, before my Saturn return. These are lessons I would have not preferred to learn later on in life, like in my 30s, 40s, 50s. This is stuff I am grateful to learn beforehand. And just giving myself grace, giving myself space, giving myself time. Most important to reflect rather than deflect, because that's easy to do. It's easy to deflect and say, oh no, that's not the case, even though it is. Sometimes you know the way, you know the answer, but you're not willing to face it because you feel like it's something greater. It got to be a better or another explanation. It's not what I want to hear. But sometimes it's what you don't want to hear is what you need to hear. And what you need to hear can move you forward rather than hold you back. Only if you allow it. And this is all within the age range of my 20s, learning all this as a 27-year-old. I'll be 28 in April, so I had to start with how. And I had to explore. I had to get out of my own way, my own mind, and just figure things out for me so I can have a better outcome, so can have a better situation. I'm doing less complaining and just learning how to be more solution orientated. Because I'm not willing to sound like a broken record and keep repeating myself about the same thing over and over and over again. So it's necessary for me to figure it all out, even if it take me a while. At least I can say I tried. At least I can say I put in effort. At least I can say I put my first foot forward. I'm proud of myself in a lot of ways. Even with my podcast, this is something I almost gave up on. I had to tell myself, like, if you give up on you, that's on you. Just don't ever fix your mouth to complain and say everybody gave up on me and you set the bar. You gave up on you first, whether it was intentionally or unintentionally. You have to show up for you even when you don't want to. Because if you don't show up for you, who will? It's what you have to do, it's what you need to do. You set the bar, you set the tone to how you want to be treated. No one set that for you. No matter how it's seen, no matter what's said, you are faced with you at the beginning, middle, and end of the day. I have me to look out for, because if I don't look out for me, who will? No one owes me anything. I owe it all to me. I owe it all to my inner child to grow, surpass all the obstacles. So back to the what I said like in the beginning of this episode. Blaming blaming is for the lame. Blaming someone for your mishaps and misfortune is not going to get you farther in life. It just won't. Because while you wasting time complaining, you could be saying, well, how can I fill in those missing gaps? How can I fill in that neglect? By being a total opposite of that. Like, for example, I didn't have the nurturance in my life. So, am I going to carry out those same traits? Absolutely not, because I know that's not going to move me forward. I've seen the downside of it and how horrible I felt as a kid. So, why carry that out of my adulthood when I can heal myself and become what I haven't had by being what I haven't seen or being what I needed growing up? What's stopping me from being that for myself? Nothing will stand in my way of that, of being the nurturer of self. I'm filling in those missing pieces. I'm filling in those gaps. So now that I know that, I show up in that. There's no sense of me complaining. It is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. And it's going to stay what it's going to stay if you're not willing to change. So I can conclude all this by saying, how is by doing. How is by exploring your wonder. How I'm gonna make it through this by using every tool that you got. That's how you can make it through whatever. Whether it be one tool, two tools, there is a tool. Without a question, without a doubt, and that's the Almighty, whoever that may be for you. Where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a way, there's instructions that come with that. You just have to be willing to follow that, follow suit with it. That's it, that's all. So until next time, Adegayudi and Varada Kadesh.